looking at the Portland Trailblazers, their 2019-20 NBA season. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia. And you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today, again, looking at the Portland Trailblazers, their season, answering your questions as well. Tomorrow, we're going to be looking at the Brooklyn Nets, so stay tuned on Instagram. Look at the stories over there so you can ask your questions or throw it as a response over on Twitter. Let's get straight into the questions that you guys asked on Instagram. A lot of similar questions that do go through. This one here, is Hassan Whiteside from Steph Izzle. Is Hassan Whiteside irrelevant in fantasy next year with Nurkic back? Would you draft him? Okay, well, we don't know where Hassan Whiteside is going to play. He is an unrestricted free agent. He may or may not be back with the Portland Trailblazers. My indications are that he won't be back. Where will he end up going? That's a really good question. Could I see him go to Charlotte? They're always a team that's looking for players and they've got cap space, so maybe he ends up as a member of the Charlotte Hornets. Would he end up with, say, would he be a fit with the Lakers in place of Dwight and JaVale McGee? Perhaps he goes there on a really cheap contract. Boston, they're always looking to upgrade what they're doing at center, although his lack of defensive skills and his lack of passing, maybe that's a problem. But I really don't see him being back as a member of the Portland Trailblazers, again, given he is an unrestricted free agent coming into this season. And this is the thing, like they aren't going to split minutes, right, if they play. Whiteside in the bubble games played 16 minutes a night, and Nurkic in his first action back after breaking a leg and missing 16 months of basketball, played 33 minutes. In the playoffs, we got Whiteside getting up to 21 minutes because he started some games with Zach Collins out, and they would go with that two big lineup. But that's not something that is a reasonable thing to happen all the time. It's just not going to happen every game. I think Whiteside could find a starting spot somewhere. Will he be as successful as what he was this year, where he played 30 minutes a night over the course of the season and was a second-round player, a top 20 player? Probably not, because I don't think a team would want him playing 30 minutes a night in most cases. But I still think there is a chance. It's all going to come down to where he ends up in free agency. And then there is a chance that he can still be a useful player. Question from Jay Glenk 7451. Jacob, thank you for the question. Jacob is a young man who listens to the show. He's a friend of my son. 13 years old. Jacob, big question from you. What are the Blazers missing to get to that championship level? Love the question. What are they missing? A lot, really. Let's be honest. They're missing defense because they don't have any. They suck defensively. Lillard and McCollum suck defensively. Carmelo sucks defensively. Yusuf Nurkic can be pretty good defensively, but they're just missing that plus some depth. Because when you get down to it, the starting five is okay. You're relying upon Mallow at the three. Yes, Trevor Ariza and Rodney Hood might be back, so that gives them a bit of depth. But after that, it was Gary Trent, and that was it. They just didn't have any bench players. Mario Hezonja, Anthony Simons, Wenyen Gabriel. Like, the bench is just not good. And that's what they need. They need to get that development in. They need to get some more depth there. Again, getting Ariza and Hood back does help. It enables them to go 9 deep in terms of solid enough rotation players. Whereas they were going 7 in the playoffs for majority of that time. So there is, it's really just getting that depth in. They're going to have the 16th pick in the upcoming draft. I had them selecting Aaron Neesmith, a guy that was a 50% three-point shooter in college, someone who can come in and be a really strong shooter who can play some minutes at the three there, but it doesn't really help their defense enough. I think that's part of their problem, is just not getting enough defensive size and capabilities on the wing and in the backcourt, and you're never going to replace Lillard, and they're probably not going to trade CJ McCollum because his contract is disgusting, and that's going to be really hard to deal with. Let's have a look. What else? More questions on Whiteside. Prod by Cyrus. Do they need to move on from CJ McCollum? As always with these questions, yes and no. if you could move on from CJ McCollum for Marcus Smart, then yeah, of course you do it, because Smart would be a great fit next to Damian Lillard. If you move on from CJ McCollum to get someone who's significantly worse, or to get a draft pick in the 20s, then you don't. Just trading away McCollum is hard because of just how much money he is going to be paid over the back end of his career. He is completely fine as a player. I don't believe he is an all-star caliber player. He's never made an all-star appearance, so that would add into that. But he is still owed some really big money coming up with an extension, which doesn't even kick in until the 2021-2022 season. So he's due $29 million next season, and then his contract kicks in for another 3 years, $100 million after that, which will take him through to age 32, where he's going to be paid $36 million a year. And that is disgusting. He's got 4 more years on the books at basically $130 million. That is not what CJ McCollum is worth. So trading him away is pretty difficult. How do you see Gary Trent translating into next season from what we saw in the bubble? I thought Trent was impressive in the bubble. In his regular season bubble games, he was the 32nd ranked player, 16 points and 4 threes, 1.6 steals. What he gave us was some good scoring, impressive amount of threes, and good steals. Now, he doesn't do anything else. Under 2 rebounds, under 1.5 assists. He shot 52% from the field and 50% from 3. Numbers which won't stick. In the playoffs, he was the 108th ranked playoff performer. He averaged 9 points. He shot 36% from the field. And of course, no rebounds and no assists, and his steal numbers cut in half. So that's your conundrum there with Trent. If the shots are going in at an otherworldly level, then sure, the numbers are fantastic. If they don't come in and he's not a 50% three-point shooter, then what the hell else is he? He's still only 21. But I worry about where he can contribute in other areas outside of shooting and scoring, because that's really what it's going to come down to with Gary Trent. Let's have a look. Mateo Rib, what are your thoughts on the Whiteside Nurkic dynamic next season? I don't think we're going to have to worry about it. I don't think Whiteside's going to be there. I think that's as simple as that. So many questions coming through on Instagram as well. YTP IOTP. Will Anthony Simons have some post-hype appeal next year in deeper leagues? He buy low in Dynasty. He was absolute trash this season. One of the worst players in the entire NBA. They were hyping him up. 6th man candidate. He's going to play a ton of minutes. He was not good at all. He was the 340th ranked fantasy player. He averaged 8 points in 21 minutes. He couldn't shoot. He couldn't defend. He couldn't pass. He's still only young. He's still just turned 21. So there is still some hope for him. But, when you're given that opportunity, you're pumped up as much as he is. In a deeper league, sure, maybe he can crack the top 250. Pretty low bar to jump over, though. I think he can get to that level. But, man, he was poor. Said Ilks, will they 100% be getting Carmelo Anthony back? No, nothing's 100%. It appears that Mallow is either going to be playing for Portland or for the Knicks. That's what it seems like at this point. Again, Mallow played a lot this year. There is going to be Trevor Ariza coming back for this team. You're going to have a healthy Zach Collins, and at some point you're going to have Rodney Hood back. Hood tore his Achilles at the start of December. So by the time the new season kicks off, it's going to be 14 months since Hood was injured. So he's probably going to be ready to go as well. So Mallow will be back. But the way that he got minutes was no Collins, no Hood, and then no Ariza. And those 3 things probably won't be the case next season. So his role, I would imagine, would be somewhat limited and reduced, even though he did play pretty well for a 36-year-old for this season. Let's now have a look at the questions that did come in on Twitter. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to tell you about the best tasting protein bar ever. You know what it is. Just say it along with me. It's Built Bar. Built Bar is back with 6 new delicious flavors. Caramel brownie, cookies and cream, cherry barcia, lemon almond cheesecake, apple almond crisp, and carrot cake to go with the original 12 OG flavors. These are candy bars masquerading as protein bars. Whatever you want to say, they are the best tasting protein bars you can find. Low sugar, low carb, high protein, and high fiber bars that are covered in 100% chocolate. They are soft and easy to chew. If you're looking to lose or maintain your current weight and you're still looking for a delicious treat that's good for you, Built Bar protein bars are the way to go. The Cherry Barcia bar, 13 grams, 130 calories, 17 grams of protein. That's better, with just 4 grams of sugar. And if you go to BuiltBar.com and use the promo code LOCKEDON, you'll get $10 off your next order. So use the promo code LOCKEDON for $10 off at BuiltBar.com. Built Bar, the company, has also brought out a new product, Built Go. Built Go is what you need when you are struggling to get through your day. You're out on a long bike ride. You're out on a long run. You're just having that crash mid-afternoon, 3 p.m. Man, where's the energy going to come from? Well, the energy is going to come from Built Go. It is a healthy replacement for an energy drink. The energy is not fake. It's long-lasting and it's natural. They come in 1.5-ounce packages. You put it in your pocket, in your wallet, in your briefcase, in your fanny pack, whatever it is you want to put it. Built Go is the way that you can break through those afternoon shackles. 3 delicious flavors: peanut butter honey, chocolate coconut, and chocolate mint. It's like drinking a monster drink with a third of the caffeine and better results. It combines energy gel with collagen protein. The collagen protein is fast absorbing, so it gets into your system fast. Plus, it's easy on the stomach and loaded with beta-alanine, B3, honey, caffeine, B6, and B12. The collagen in it promotes joint, soft tissue, hair, and skin health, and the stuff will literally make you look better as well as providing you that energy kick. So go to builtgo.com, use the promo code LOCKED, and you'll get 30% off your next order. The promo code is LOCKED for 30% off at builtgo.com. Let's go. Let's go indeed. And that is onto some questions that came through on Twitter from you guys. Another question from T-Boss: does Whiteside stay on the team? What is his role? If he does, he's playing 18 minutes a night behind Yusuf Nurkic. So that's pretty much it. Hayden Tompkins: how much impact do you think the return or rise of players like Gary Trent and Rodney Hood will impact the top producers on this team? CJ, Dame, and Nurk. I don't think it will have any impact on them whatsoever. We're seeing more and more in the NBA that teams are just like, our best players, they get the ball. The other guys, they fill complementary roles, and usage discrepancies are much higher now than they used to be. So if Hood is back, which I think he will be at some point, and Trent is playing more minutes, they're not going to say, well, Dame, take the ball out of your hand so that Gary Trent can jack up some threes. I just don't think that's going to be the concern for me. Alan Shrochi says, do you think Dame has hit his peak for fantasy value, or is there still another level for him to go up? Let's get it out there now. Yes, he has hit his peak, and I'll tell you why. He was the third-ranked player this year. He averaged 34 and 8 with 4 threes on 46 and 89% shooting. What he did in the bubble was completely unsustainable. 42 minutes, 37 points and 5 triples. So that can't be sustained over a season. But he was the third-ranked player this year. He took his scoring up from 26 to 30 points per game. His assists went from 6.9 to over 7. He was able to get his efficiency up as well. His true shooting up to 63%. So, yes, this is his peak. He's 30 years of age. You don't usually continue to get better. And that's not saying he's going to have a big drop-off. He just probably won't be the third-ranked player next season. All right, let's have a look. Jesus Walker or Jesus Walker, do you think Nurkic will play next year more than 30 minutes as he did in the bubble? Yes, I don't see why he wouldn't. If so, is the third round sound realistic? Yes, let's get this out of the way as well. Yusuf Nurkic, over the course of the season, per game value, was the 9th ranked fantasy player. Now, that's only in those 9 bubble games. But he averaged 18 and 11 with 2 blocks. So, yeah, third round absolutely is realistic. Jonathan Chown, is it time to give up on Zach Collins? No. Like, not at all. This is he's played 3 years, and he's been injured in a lot of them. No, absolutely there's no way that I'm giving up on him. He's not even 23 yet. He's going to be 23 next season. But there is no way that I'm giving up on Zach Collins, and I would do so at your own peril. Jai Thomas says, can Gary Trent and Anthony Simons make CJ McCollum tradable for other needs? Again, getting back to that, no. These guys aren't as good as CJ. Anthony Simons is about 10% of CJ at this point, but who's going to trade for CJ? That's the problem, is getting that value back. Justin Guadagno, based on the season bubble, does Mallow have 10-team potential for next season? I will categorically say no. No, he does not have anywhere near 10-team value. Mallow was the 117th ranked player this year, which is not a 10-team player. And yes, a 10-team player, the top 130 players get rostered in 10-team leagues, and 117, for those of you with calculators on hand, is lower than 130. So he's a 10-team player theoretically, but he's not. Because those back-end guys, your last 12 players, the worst player on your roster in a 10-team league is not a must-roster 10-team league player. They are guys that you just cycle through, and that's exactly what Mallow was this year. Plus, Ariza, Collins, and Hood are all going to be back, cutting into his playing time. I reckon that's it in terms of questions. That was a long one. You guys asked brilliant questions there, so I appreciate those ones. Let's get into talking about these players, and we start, of course, with Damian Lillard, who, as I mentioned, was somehow the third-ranked player in fantasy for this season. We weren't expecting Lillard to be ranked that high, that's for sure. I think he was like 7th or 8th heading into the season. In fact, his ADP was 9th on Yahoo. It really helped that bubble production, because that was able to jump him way up the top there. And as I said, I just don't think that level of production from Dame Lillard is a reasonable expectation as he moves forward. 27 points per game, 3.8 threes. Definitely not the 8 assists the average. Maybe it's like 7.3, 7.4. Maybe that. The 46% shooting, maybe that drops off as well. I think that expecting Lillard to be the third-ranked player next season would be foolish. But his advanced stats were unbelievable. 2.88 PIPM, 6.3 Raptor, 63 true shooting, 30% usage. He was absolutely amazing in terms of what he was able to do this year. I just don't necessarily think that it's going to be able to stick at that level because it was a ridiculously high level. He could be similar in terms of impact next season, but probably won't be quite at that number 3 ranked spot. Yusuf Nurkic, as I mentioned, the 9th ranked player, 0.25 PIPM, negative 0.1 Raptor, 57 true shooting. But again, this is just in 9 games. He averaged 18 and 11 in 33 minutes with 2 blocks, 1.5 steals, over 4 assists, 50 and 80%. He is the Blazers' second best player. There's no getting that confused. He shot 31% from 3, so there is some ability maybe for him to become a 3-point shooter. Really encouraged by the fact that he hit 80% of his threes during that. I wish he'd hit 80% of his threes. 80% of his free throws. This is a guy that in the past has been a high-volume, poor free throw shooter, which has really had an impact. In fact, the season before he broke his leg, he was at 63%. When he broke his leg, he was at 77%. So I get the feeling that he's fixed that problem. He does need to become a better finisher. 51% from 2 from a center is not good enough. That's where he can actually improve. I think expecting 18 and 11 with 2 blocks from him is probably a little bit too high. I could very easily see him being a top 30 player, though, for next season. And I don't think I'd have any hesitation. If he falls to the 4th round, to me, he's a no-brainer selection. He could be a 3rd-round guy. How old is he? He's only 26. That is insanity. I think he's going to be an absolute monster next season, to be honest. Jusuf Nurkic, really looking forward to seeing what he's going to be able to bring. Next up is Hassan Whiteside.
The world.
Let's talk about Hassan Whiteside because he was a guy that was a player that was probably in the 60s or 70s in terms of draft spot, and we worried. Like if there was a regular season that wasn't impacted by COVID-19.
Ooh, it's a pandemic.
Then Whiteside would have really fallen off because as soon as Nurkic came back, Whiteside played 18 minutes a night. Like he played his backup role, 15 minutes. That was it. And that was the worry we had for him in draft time. He's like, when Nurkic isn't there, he's going to play 30 plus and he's going to probably be a top 50 player. And then he might become a droppable guy. And I think that's exactly what we saw happen. It's just that we didn't get to see Nurkic play during the regular season or the fantasy portion of the season. 19th ranked player, massive surprise, 15 and 13, 3 blocks, 62%, 69 from the line.
Giggity.
Look, really strong numbers from Whiteside. The best season he's put up in quite a few years, back to the 16-17 season where he played 33 minutes. Do you want to sign Hassan Whiteside to play 33 minutes a night for your team? Would you be happy if your team paid Hassan Whiteside to do that? I wouldn't be. I think Whiteside is a player that when he's out there and getting those minutes, he puts up numbers. There is zero doubt about that. Like, we know that. But he is not a very good defensive player in general. Now, in saying this, his advanced numbers were unbelievable. 3.3 PIPM, 3 Raptor, 64 true shooting. Unbelievably good numbers. He did improve his defense. The dude's 31 years of age, though. He is, he's not young.
You're just mad because your ass is old.
And does he continue to get better? Who is relying upon him for these minutes? I think there is a chance, completely dependent on where he goes, that he can be a top 80 player. But realistically, his best role in the NBA is a backup big man who plays 20 minutes, comes in, throws fouls around, blocks shots, grabs rebounds, sits his ass down and lets a better player play in front of him. I just, at his age, I've never really rated him that highly, but at his age now, I think that's the role he's got to accept. I don't know how he's getting paid in this offseason or who is paying him, but his free agency is going to be extraordinarily intriguing. CJ McCollum, the 55th ranked player. I'm always historically low on CJ McCollum. He didn't live up to his ADP, which is 45. He was the 55th ranked player. A plus 0.3 PIPM, 0.7 Raptor. That's pretty interesting that he was able to have those numbers. And remember, Raptor and PIPM is based a lot on what you do when you're on the court. Yeah, it's right there in the name for PIPM, plus minus. The fact that Damian Lillard was able to be plus 3s or plus 4s and 5s and 6s of those sort of things is really interesting that then McCollum could be almost a zero, almost a neutral in those numbers. I think I had him ranked at 70th at the beginning of the season. He played a ton more minutes than I expected. He played 34 last year, up to 37 this year. He averaged 22 points. That's never going to be the problem with him. It's just, what else is he doing? The defensive numbers are never going to be there. He had an inexplicable drop-off in his free throws from 82 down to 75%, which hurt his overall value. But what he is, he's a guy that scores, and he's a guy that hits threes. That's what CJ McCollum is. In the bubble, he played 41 minutes and he averaged 21 points again. He did get 5 assists per game, so that was interesting, and he was able to increase his overall assist numbers over the course of the season, up from 3 to 4.3. So that was interesting. And I think the idea initially was that Anthony Simons would handle a lot of ball handling roles, and then when after one game it was like, this isn't working, we have to actually get CJ running the second unit. It worked. Now if they get another backup point guard to come in free agency, then I'd worry about where CJ's assist numbers come, because that's the difference between him being the 75th ranked player and the 55th ranked player. The scoring is always going to be fine. The 3-point volume is always going to be fine. He hit 38% from 3. He's a 38 to 42% 3-point shooter most seasons. CJ is also, he's 29, so he's not particularly young, and he's not particularly impactful in terms of his advanced metrics. And that worries me that at some point he is going to drop and he's going to become, instead of a 22-point per game guy, he goes to a 17-point per game guy. Then he's the 120th ranked player, because there's just not enough really else coming through there with McCollum. And I think that drop-off is going to happen in the next 2 years. It probably won't be this upcoming season, but he is a name that I am a little bit worried about where his career goes from here. Next up is Mallow. Carmelo Anthony, the 117th ranked player. Started out with a bang, fell off, came back pretty strong, and in the end, it's a pretty good season for a 36-year-old who was out of the league. And let's be honest, he was terrible for those last 2 seasons, and he was much better this year. I have no hesitation in saying that Mallow was, played some really good basketball. It also, we need to get this nonsense out of the way of, your apology needs to be as loud as your disrespect. I'll tell you what also needs to be the same level. When people say, Mallow, he's fantastic, and then he goes out and has 1 for 10 and is terrible defensively the next game. Because that consistent, that chat doesn't happen. It's like, Mellow's fantastic, he scored 20 points, well done, and then he has 5 the next game. You got to keep it balanced. I think he was good. He was a solid enough starter, a solid enough replacement for Zach Collins, and you couldn't really ask for too much more. 16 and 6, 1.5 threes. Not particularly efficient, 53% true shooting. Raptor absolutely hated him, negative 4.4 with a negative 0.79 PIPM. He wasn't completely ball hoggy. There were a few moments, but he wasn't completely bad there. He doesn't really get to the line. He doesn't provide defensive stats. He was okay. I really can't see him being a player that you'd want to deal with in terms of standard leagues next year. I don't know what team he's going to go to that's going to enable him to become, Mallow from 6 years ago. That's just not going to happen because he's not 6 years younger. So he was able to put up some impressive-ish type numbers at times, but he was in and out in terms of fantasy usefulness. I don't know where he ends up. If he goes to the Knicks, what do they say? They play him 34 minutes a night and let him do everything? That would be very Knicksy of them. But he just doesn't have that ability to be a 24-point per game scorer, hitting 2.5 threes with defensive numbers. He's never going to do any of those things. This is almost best case scenario from Mallow, or for Mallow from now on. Trevor Ariza, the 141st ranked player. Let's be fair again to him. He was shithouse with Sacramento. Really, really not good. And then came across in a trade and played pretty well. He ended up 141st with 28 minutes per night. He averaged 8 points. His value comes from getting steals. 1.3 steals per game. That's his only positive contribution in fantasy categories. He shoots free throws fine, but he doesn't shoot any of them. It's 1.3 steals. Everything else is subpar. 1.5 threes is okay. It's also subpar. Now, he was much better as a member of the Portland Trail Blazers versus where he was with the Kings. It was a big change in terms of what his production was like, but he wasn't amazing. He played 33 minutes a night and started 21 games for the Blazers. His field goal percentage went from 39 to 49%. His threes went from 35 to 40%. He averaged 11 points in Portland with 1.6 steals, and they were all really useful. But as I said, Collins and Hood are both going to be back. So Collins coming back takes minutes away from Mallow playing the 4 if Mallow returns. Hood coming back takes minutes away from Ariza at the 3. Trent's arrival takes minutes away there. Now, will Ariza play those 33 minutes, or will he be 27 minutes a night? It's all going to come down to him shooting threes and getting steals, and there's going to be better, much higher upside options at the back end of a draft. Ariza, also 35 years of age, so not particularly young, and by not particularly young, I mean he's old. Guys, you don't have to be old to deal with erectile dysfunction. It is a medical condition that can hit people of any age. And a lot of the time, guys, they just brush it off. Oh, I'm tired. It's never happened to me before. Stressed at work. The pandemic. It's really getting to me. Just, it'll be better next time. Don't worry about having these issues, because this is a medical condition. It's not an attack on your masculinity. It doesn't mean that you failed. It means that you've got a medical condition like a broken arm or high cholesterol, and you can do something about it by seeing Roman. With Roman, you can get a free online evaluation and ongoing care for erectile dysfunction, all from the comfort and privacy of your home. A healthcare professional will work with you to find your best treatment plan, and if medication is appropriate, Roman will ship it to you with free 2-day shipping. Erectile dysfunction used to be tough to tackle, but now there's Roman. Complete an online visit today to connect with a healthcare professional and take care of it. Go to getroman.com/lockedonnba today, and if approved, you'll get $15 off your first order of ED treatment. That's getroman.com/lockedonnba. Getroman.com/lockedonnba.
Who's next?
Rodney Hood is next. Rocket Rodney Hood tore his Achilles 6th of December. We thought, he'd be struggling to get back for the 2020-2021 season at full health, but by the time that the season starts, he's going to be over 12 months removed from this injury. It's not easy to come back from, and he'll probably be subpar when he returns, but he will be returning this season. I feel pretty confident about that. He played 30 minutes a night last year, Rocket. He had, okay advanced numbers, had an absolute monster true shooting of 63% on just 14 usage, because he hit 49% of his threes and 51% overall. Let me tell you right now, that won't continue. He will drop way off. The reason he even was able to crack into the top 200 is because he hit 1.7 threes and had 51% shooting from the field. And those two things will not happen, especially returning from a torn Achilles. I expect Hood's next season to be pretty poor. He has a $6 million player option, which I'm almost assured that he will pick up, and he will split minutes with Ariza and with... Ariza, actually, I should have mentioned this. Ariza has a $13 million contract for next season, but only $1.8 million of that is guaranteed. I imagine the Blazers guarantee the rest of that, but if they do want to waive him, they can get out of it by paying just $2 million. So he could return. Hood will be back on that $6 million, but he has to then come in with Mallow if he returns, with Ariza, who he hasn't played with, and with the emergence of Trent as well, and his minutes and his playing time and his production, I imagine will be significantly lower than what we saw this season, where he averaged 11 points with 1.7 threes. Of course, in true Rocket Rodney Hood style, no assists, no steals, no blocks, and subpar rebounds. Let's go on to the next guy on this this list, who is, if I can bring it up on my screen, Gary Trent. It is Gaza.
Nice, Gary!
All right, now my thing would work. It'd be great. There we go. Gary Trent, the 217th ranked player. Exactly neutral on Raptor, 2.43 negative for PIPM, 59 true shooting. He absolutely leapfrogged Anthony Simons in terms of young guard value. He's still not 22. He averaged 22 minutes, 9 points with 1.8 threes. But as I said earlier, what else is he doing apart from hitting threes? We know he had a breakout bubble in those 9 games, 16 points with 4 threes. It is not going to happen. He shot 50% from 3. He is not going to be able to do that. Let me assure you of that. It just won't happen. The 1.6 steals, sure. He played some pretty good defense. Against the Lakers, he was nowhere near as good. 0.8 steals, 36% from the field. Under 10 points, that is the problem. When things aren't going, when the shot's not falling, then he's just not a valuable fantasy player. Can he improve those other areas? I am pretty skeptical of it. But can he eventually turn into a CJ McCollum player who can be an 18-point per game scorer with 3.5 threes? I could see that happening in a couple of years' time. So we're probably a little bit away from that, but absolute upside ceiling. Is he the guy that you want to build around? I would actually like to see how he fits next to Lillard more because he can defend, unlike McCollum, but they're never going to break up that pairing at this point anyway to throw Gary Trent in there for more minutes. Zach Collins, really disappointing season from Collins, 256th ranked player. He only played 12 games, and 9 of those were in the bubble. He had that shoulder injury. He was the starting power forward at the beginning of the year. He wasn't great in those games and then came back for the bubble and hurt his ankle. That's the problem with Collins at the moment, is the injuries. He played only 25 minutes a night, 7 and 6 with 0.4 blocks and 0.4 steals on a true shooting of 54%, which is not great. The advanced stuff is okay. I still like Collins. I still think that there is an opportunity for him to have top 100 seasons. I feel like there's going to be a little bit of a crunch for his minutes, and he won't play 30, 31 minutes. At the beginning of this season, what he was going to have was, there's no Nurkic. He was the only power forward on the roster, even though he's a center. And he was going to play 30 minutes a night, playing some power forward and playing some center. Now, there's Nurkic back. There's Ariza there. There's Hood returning. Maybe Mallow's back. There's other guys who are going to take these minutes. I wouldn't expect Collins to be impacting standard leagues this year. He's about to turn 23, so he's not super old, but he's also not he's not unbelievably young. I think his best years are still a couple of years away from him. Top upside is probably top 80, I would guess, if he can become like a 13 and 8 with 1.5 threes and 1.6 blocks on 50 and 80. I think he can maybe get there. But it was a disappointing season for Zach Collins, no doubt. Next up is Mario Hezonja.
It's me, Mario.
Look, again, opportunities arose for Hezonja when Collins went down. He struggled. I would say that's fair. 325th ranked player, negative 2.93 PIPM is bad, negative 4.7 Raptor is bad. He always has occasional moments, but in the end, he averaged 5 points on 42% shooting with 0.7 steals. He's 26 years of age, Hezonja. He has got a $1.9 million player option. I could see him going back to Europe, to be honest, and earning more money over there and being on a better team, well, not a better team, getting a larger role. I don't think we should have any faith in him really pushing back inside the top 300 anytime soon. Anthony Simons, let's talk disappointments, because he's the 340th ranked player. His PIPM was negative 4.74. His Raptor was minus 5.3. That PIPM is one of the worst 15 in the entire league. His true shooting was 50. His usage was under 19%. At this point, I don't know what he does well. It's not defending. He can't pass. The shooting is not there, under 40% shooting and 33 from 3. He's a high usage creator. I just don't know what he's good at this stage. Clearly overtaken by Gary Trent for the guards. In the bubble, he was no better. He shot 27% there. He was a little bit better in the series against the Lakers, averaging 7 points, but still 31% shooting. At this point, the evidence would tell us that he's not good and that he can't shoot. He's only 2 years in. He's still a long way away from hitting his best, but is his best actually good enough? Can he be a top 100 player? This year is going to be a really interesting one. We barely saw him as a rookie because Portland has a weird thing where they just don't like to play these rookies or don't like to play them in the G League. We'll talk about that when we get to see a little. And then he had the opportunity this year and really shit the bed with it. Let's see where he goes. I would say the likelihood of him having a top 100 season in his career appears pretty low at this point. It's only 2 years in. I'm not writing him off, but man, he was rough. These are some of the things that you had the worries about for him heading in, not playing any college, and he just hasn't been able to adjust at all at this stage. Still a long way to go, but my faith is a little bit dented. Caleb Swanigan, my faith is not dented because I didn't have it to begin with. He played just 27 games, came across from the Kings, back to the Blazers where he began his career. 11 minutes a game, 2 points, 4 rebounds, 60% shooting. He just isn't a modern big. His Raptor was worse than Simon's, negative 6.5, negative 3 PIPM, 60 true shooting. He's not good. He can't defend. He does not fit the modern NBA. His future in the NBA should be up in the air. He's an unrestricted free agent. I would have no faith in him ever having a top 300 season. He was 425th this year. Let's talk Nasir Little, who did have some opportunities to start this year. He was the 437th ranked player. He was a negative 1.95 and negative 3.2 PIPM and Raptor respectively, 51 true shooting. But I thought, given how much he struggled in college and how little the Raptors like to play their young guys, he didn't play a single game in the G League. I thought that he showed some moments, and I would have liked for them to have at least tried a little bit more with him instead of Mallow. In the end, the Mallow experiment probably worked out, and I was likely wrong on that one. But Little still has some upside value here. Remember, really highly regarded high school prospect who was terrible in college. One thing he can do is be a really strong rebounder, but we have concerns about shooting. 64 from the line, 43% from the field, 24% from three. Didn't really rebound at a super high rate. In fact, per 36, he was at under 7. Doesn't get defensive stats or didn't get defensive stats. I'd like to see what he can do this year. I think his best position is going to be playing as a 4 and playing some minutes as a 3 because of his rebounding ability. That pushes him up to the 4. And maybe, they look at him as a 4 of the future if Mallow is not there and if they want to push Zach Collins back to center, which is, I think, what they probably should be doing at some stage. Little is a guy that I'm never thinking is going to be an efficient scorer or high volume scorer, but rebounding is where he can get some value, but that's pretty limited in terms of fantasy upside for Nasir Little. Wenyen Gabriel started games in the playoffs, amazingly. He came over in the Ariza trade as well. 441st ranked player, negative 1.68 PIPM and negative 1 Raptor, which isn't terrible. In the playoffs, in those games, he played 4 of them, 13 minutes, 5 points with 60% shooting. So nothing overly spectacular there from Gabriel, but stepped up ahead of a guy like Caleb Swanigan. But getting the bunch of guys back, the Ariza, Hood, Collins guys back, is going to have an impact on what he's going to be able to do. Advanced numbers are okay. He's a restricted free agent. His G League PIPM was through the roof. 2.94, absolute huge number there. He did that, of course, in only 7 games playing for the Reno Kings. He averaged 19 and 9 with almost 2 blocks and shot 46% from 3 on almost 4 attempts. So there's some really, really good numbers from Wenyen Gabriel. And I thought he showed that he can be at least a rotation caliber player in the NBA. He's only 23, so he's not 24 yet. So he's still got some upside there, but finding minutes is going to be a little bit tough for Wenyen. Next player up is Jalen Horde, one of their two-way guys, 459th ranked player. Some of his advanced projection numbers are actually pretty good. Thinking in 4 or 5 years, he can be a positive player. He's a restricted free agent with a PIPM of negative 0.38. Horde is a wing-sized player who's only 21, and so many of, when we've talked about other teams talking about their two-way guys, they're 23, 24 years of age. The two Blazers guys, which I give them credit for, are younger guys, and Horde is one of those. He averaged 16 points in the G League with 7 rebounds. He only shot 22% from 3, so that's obviously a concern, and just 61% from the line. So there are some real concerns there for him. I don't have massive faith in him. I think he can be a solid enough defensive wing. He's 6'8", he's relatively long, but I'm not sure that he's really that huge upside guy. And the last player we look at is Moses Brown, a big man who really didn't do anything at the NBA level, played just 9 games, 4 minutes a game there. 21 years of age, big ass center, 7'2", in the G League, averaged 14 and 8 with 1.3 blocks. The worry there is he's 7'2" and he averaged 1.3 blocks and played only 19 minutes. He shot 64% from the field. That's fine, but not a terrible free throw shooter, in fact. Some of his advanced projections numbers as well make you sit up and go, okay, maybe there's something there for him. I don't really see it, though. I think he's going to be not a player that you want anything more than your third string center. His Raptor was hilariously bad this year as well, negative 22.3 in those limited minutes. That will do it for today's show, guys. Talking about the Portland Trailblazers. I'll be back tomorrow to look at the Brooklyn Nets. Don't forget, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Leave a thumbs up down below. Drop a comment. Subscribe. Tell your friends. All of that stuff, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.